That means the government has shown and continues to show renewed interest in addressing the housing needs of the country. This is evident through the following: continuous allocation of resources to land servicing and housing development. The other opportunity is that ensuring a conducive policy, legal and regulatory environment and framework for the investment in land and housing delivery through national development and policy instruments such as the National Development Plans, NDPs, the Harambee Prosperity Plan, and the Mass Housing Development Plan, and also the Mass Urban Land Servicing Project. In response to the identified lengthy and cumbersome administrative and approval bottlenecks, the government has initiated a reform of policies and laws dealing with the land and the housing. Among this is the repealing of the outdated urban and regional planning laws and replacing them with a single planning legislation that is called Urban and Regional Planning Bill, which provides a single administrative body as well as the delegation of some of the approval functions that are currently performed at the center down to the local authorities and regional governments levels. The other opportunity is a private investment public partnership that was articulately mentioned and eloquently presented by the Minister of Finance this morning. The other thing in this component is that we have the National Housing Enterprise that is an arm of government dealing with the housing. The other opportunity is that the housing sector is enjoying the privilege of attention in the Harambee Prosperity Plan, the plan that is there to accelerate the development in all the sectors that were identified for this particular conference. In addition, the investment in housing construction, local authorities and the NHE have large tracts of unserviced and serviced land all over the country, which are seeking for affordable private funding and partnership. That's why the investors are here to listen to this message. The central government, through the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development and the Attorney General, has been providing the technical and the legal support to enable local authorities to enter into joint ventures agreement with the private sector for the purposes of servicing land and the development of the affordable housing that we are talking about. Furthermore, we are dealing with the PPP, as was indicated by the Minister of Finance this morning. And we are saying that the Harambee Prosperity Plan has allocated to the sector ministry, that's the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, that about or at least 6,500 serviced residential plots per year should be made available, and at least 5,000 housing units should be built every year. The other area of opportunity is housing microfinancing that the smaller groups like the Sheikh Dwellers Federation and the Build Together are dealing with. The other opportunity is a housing financing and delivery system. The backlog highlights that there is a room and an urgent need for additional or new innovative housing financing instruments and delivery capacities of the level of financial institutions and the construction industry. And there is also a need for manufacturing of building materials and in the introduction of alternative building technologies. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude that as a sector minister, I look forward to see manufacturing plants in all the regions and the municipalities and town councils around the country. Here we are talking about 14 regions that are making up the Republic of Namibia, 54 municipalities and town councils that are dealing with the investments that we are prospecting to take place between you, the dear investors, and the town councils. This is what we are talking about. I'm looking forward, and we are going to be flexible to provide conducive atmosphere for the investors to put their money down, not for charity, but on a win-win situation. Dear moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by my presentation with a quote that says, and I quote, "Difficulties are opportunities to better things. They are stepping stones to greater experience. When one door closes, another one always opens. As a natural law, it has to balance." End of the quote. I therefore wish to appeal to the investors and the financiers to see the housing backlog as an opportunity for them to invest and make a difference for themselves and for our country. We as government, our doors are open to provide once more a conducive atmosphere. Comrade President, dear moderator, and my colleagues, I thank you very much for your kind attention.
There you've heard it from the Minister herself. Housing backlog of 300,000 housing units. Affordability is the key to house construction going forward. Lengthy and outdated approval processes. And then the government's targets to build additional houses, 5,000 houses per annum, 6,500 urbans per year. So I'll give the opportunity to the discussants so that they can also share some of their experiences across the continent, and those that are here as well can share their experiences in Namibia. So I'd just like to give them 3 minutes each. If you can just stick to a 3-minute quick roundup of your experiences and your views, and then we can get into an open discussion with the Minister. So let's start off with Hennie.
Thank you very much. I'm the CEO and inventor of a company called Moladi, where we produce plastic injection molded formwork, and we erect the formwork and we cast a house in a day. Earlier on at the lunch, we listened to the professor from Ghana explaining innovation, and he made reference to the electric car. I wish I'd met him before, then he could also have mentioned Hennie Botha's inventing the cast house system. We're currently busy in 24 countries. Our biggest country with the most backlog in Africa at this point is Nigeria, with a backlog of 20 million houses. So if you look at Namibia with a backlog of 300,000 houses, it really is a drop in the bucket. What we've got to look at is to really use the opportunity of the backlog of housing, as the Minister indicated, to also stimulate job creation. So we should, what I would like to have said to the professor, that education actually teaches innovation out of children. So what we've got to do is we've got to go back to maybe school level, and instead of measuring all children with mathematics and science, is to give children the opportunity maybe to plant seeds for food and also to build houses, because we lack skills and we lack the delivery and the backlog. So if we combine that, we would be able to really address the issues of Namibia, the unemployment and the housing backlog. But this we can only do through changing technology. So if we look at the technology that is currently used, it is a very wasteful process. It's a slow process, and it is a very costly process. And therefore, all of these opportunities that is given in order to address the backlog, in a sense, fails, because we're still wanting to move from here to Johannesburg on a donkey car. We should be flying. So we need new technology. And this is really what Moladi stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Hennie.
I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable President and the Cabinet, but most importantly to me and my organization, Honorable Minister Shaningwa and her entire staff, who I see a lot of people from her ministry here, as well as a lot of people from the private sector, both in the construction and finance industry, that make it possible for investors to come here and learn the ropes of how to invest. As Khalili mentioned, I'm actually originally from Venezuela, and I spent about half my life in the United States, where I started my career. And in early 2014, I came with a group of investors that I had met along my travels and my work experience in finance in New York. And I convinced them that they should give me $1 million and I would come to Namibia and start investing in housing. I've spent here about 2 years. I actually have a work permit. I was here for the session on Ministry of Home Affairs. There is a conducive environment for investment. If you don't believe that, and if you've had a bad experience with that, don't go to the minister, come to me. Before I get into my experience with housing, I'd actually like to say something that is quite important to mention. Anywhere you go in the world, you will find red tape. In the United States, you will find red tape. In Venezuela, my friends, you will find a lot of red tape. Actually, the government wears red color these days. But despite that, you cannot take away from the Venezuelan government that they built 1 million homes in the last 10 years. 1 million. Now, going back to the gentleman from Moladi and other people I see here from the private sector, that can only happen if you have conducive environment, which there is here, if you have alternative technology, and if you have a process of accountability. The private sector needs to sit down together. I've recently started sitting with other developers, and I found that one of the main things that is failing in our projects or in our ability to acquire land is our accountability to ourselves, to our investors, to the government, and to the buyers. And I'm also referring to the banks, which is a whole separate discussion. Now, if I can say something that will sound weird at first, is people don't want houses. They want habitats. Now, a habitat is a multiplicity of networks, which involves 3 things: the physical, the economic, and the social factors. On the physical, you need services. You need water, you need sewage, you need electricity, you need roads. And the government is doing its best, and it is here asking for private investors to come and collaborate through PPP agreements and even through your own incentives as investors to come and put the physical things on the ground. But we can't expect the minister and her team, along with the private sector, to provide houses for people if we don't keep in mind that the social and the economic needs to come with it. If we build right now 15,000 homes, 40 kilometers from Windhoek, those places will not be occupied. And if they are occupied, the mortgages will not be paid. Because we need to put schools there. We need to create jobs around there. We need to create health facilities around there. Which drives me to the next point. I will not touch on any of the points the minister made, but I will say that everything she has said cannot be more true. And I recommend you go download that presentation. I hadn't seen it before, but the statistics and the comments she makes are real. I spent the beginning of my career in the 22nd floor of a Manhattan investment bank working behind a computer. But I've spent the last 2 years in the regions of Namibia trying to get new projects, which is why I'm here today. I'm asking for help in trying to get new projects. I will bring the money. One thing I learned from spending my time in the regions of Namibia. Let's start with the civil servants. 88% of government employees fall within 5 ministries. And I want you to keep the statistic in mind, and I want to give you another one. These 5 ministries are health, defense, security, education, and agriculture. That's 88%. There's about 100,000 government employees registered if you look at the Ministry of Finance publications. Now, if you look at their affordability, I actually took the time to find out how much these people are making. They're all registered in a pension fund, so you can kind of understand where the pension fund's clients are. Half, 53,000 of these people qualify for a home of 360,000 or less. Now, you can imagine that probably the upper half of government employees already have a house or are maybe happier than the lower half. So we must focus our conversation in that affordability, in my opinion, is below the 500 mark. And we have the minister saying that the median price, according to research, is 800,000. Now, I'll close with this. Our company is young. I am young. Behind me stand a group of investors from different parts. We have investors in Europe, we have investors in the United States, and we've recently even been able to tap into investors in South Africa. We lack the projects to do this. But through partnerships, through my time on the ground, we've hired up to 95 people, Namibian people. And we have built houses starting at 310,000 with the land inclusive and the services. We have focused on alternative materials, which we have struggled with the banks to get them approved, even though those same materials are already approved in South Africa. So banks, we must sit down together, we must work together as the private sector to make the job easier for the Namibian people. This is not for the government. The government is here to represent the Namibian people. We must make the job easier for the Namibian people to get a house. And I'll close with that. Harambe.
Thank you, David, for those insights and your experiences. So we'll move on to Dr. Andreas Freytag, so he can share some of his experiences with us.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me here. I am indeed part of a delegation from Germany, and you've seen the house outside.